I'm feeling a little under pressure when it comes to buying a house versus buying a car. So I just want to understand, of the two, is there a priority, or like, what is the what? Is how do I buy a car the best way, and how do I buy a house the best way? What is the understanding between these two worlds?
What's
Okay, let's talk about cars and houses. I don't have the answer here. I really don't have the answer, but just some things to think about. Okay. There's always trade-offs with money. Every rand is the same rand, right? Money's fungible. A rand is a rand is a rand no matter what you do with it, right? The same rand that you use to buy this, you could also use to buy this. So that means that anytime you're thinking about, do I want this? It's always a question of, do I want this more than I want this other thing? Okay. So if what you want in your life is you really want a car, like it really matters to you, it will be part of how you feel about yourself, it like will make you happy, it will honestly add value to your life, then don't let anybody tell you that that doesn't matter. That's what you want, right? But always just think about like, do I just want it because like it's what I think I should have and it'd be kind of nice and it's the next step? Or do I actually want it more than I want to, I don't know, whatever my other big dreams are. I want to start a business, I want to go travel the world, I want to do another degree, whatever it might be, your other big dreams. So with that, I think it's always worthwhile thinking about what things really cost and think about what they cost over your lifetime, and always try and think about things like that, right? Not just like what do they cost every month, because that can be a difficult trap. Okay, so think about cars. If you buy a car at age 25, wait, I need to check this number. This is from my manuscript, wait, okay. Yeah, okay, so if you buy a car at age 25, and you buy a new Hyundai, it costs you 4,000 rand a month, right? And cars are crazy expensive, okay? And you trade in that car every few years for the new model, right? But you're always paying 4,000 rand a month. Let's pretend inflation doesn't exist. And you just, every few years, you keep trading in for just the new Hyundai. And you're always spending 4,000 rand a month. You do this your whole life until you turn 65, okay? Over that time, you spent 2 million rand on your car, okay? So it's okay if that is worth it. If it's worth it to you, that's okay. But if there is something else you would rather do with 2 million rand over your lifetime, there's a free 2 million rand for you. Like, there's always more money than you think there is, okay? So it's trade-offs. It's always trade-offs. So cars are way more expensive than we think they are, okay? A car is a depreciating asset. This is the difference between cars and houses, some houses. I'll talk about houses in a second. I am so confused about whether I should buy a house. I also haven't bought a house yet because I'm so confused about it. Okay, but cars. Cars are depreciating. That means that the moment you buy a car and you drive it off the floor, what does it do? It loses 30% of its value, gone, okay? It's like you've cut off a third of the car, it's gone, its value is gone, okay? And every day you drive that car, it becomes less and less and less valuable. And different cars depreciate at different rates, so actually buying something like an old Mercedes-Benz might be a smarter financial decision than buying a new sexy little Ford or something, because they depreciate slower sometimes. So there are websites you can look online and see different cars, how do they depreciate, so there are things you can do to like balance it off. But generally cars, they're not an asset in the way that they're not putting money in your pocket. They're not helping you get wealth. They're not helping you get more independence. They're just losing their value, right? So when you're thinking about whether to buy a car, it's really a cost question. It's a question about your budget. And it is a trade-off between what are you spending on where you live often and what are you spending on how you travel, because those things are related, right? So you can't make the one decision without the other. So a couple of things about buying a car. The first one is really take into account the cost of the car over its lifetime. Don't just look at the sticker of like, what am I going to pay this month? Because people get sucked into making these really terrible decisions by doing that. One of the big things that people often get suckered in by is this term that the car industry has invented, which is devilish, which is the balloon payment, okay? Oh, it's very naughty. So the idea of the balloon payment is you'll pay a lower amount every month. So suddenly this car you couldn't afford, magically now you can afford it. Lower monthly payments. But then after X many years, now you owe this big amount. And the idea is then you trade in your car, you get that extra amount, or you like invest the difference, then pay it off. And what? The math almost never works out. It almost always costs you much more money doing it that way. But people we get sucked in because we're greedy and we want it now. We don't want to wait. And that's a very normal human thing and it's very understandable. But if you look at the cost over the whole lifetime of that decision and you put that in some calculators, some good calculators online, almost never makes sense. So if you do need to buy a car, like just work it out, work out the trade-off for you. And often I think what people will find when they do that calculation for themselves is sometimes you need a car, but maybe you don't need an expensive car. Maybe you need a cheap car that you save up for rather, because then you can control the growth and you're growing at 6% instead of growing minus 10%, right? Because that's like the cheapest car loan you can get. So you assess the interest. And then you can have that car and you can own it in that amount of time instead of like this thing that is owned by the bank. And then what you have now is you have this debt to the bank. But yeah. Those are cars. That's the easy part. Houses. Okay, so here's the basic idea about buying property. The idea is that you, instead of paying your rent every month, you're paying off someone else's mortgage, you start paying off your own mortgage. So you buy a house and you buy it for whatever price you buy it at, and then over the time you own it, the asset appreciates. So it's an appreciating asset as opposed to a car. It's worth more in time, in theory, than when you buy it. So the idea is that you sort of save some money as well, because rents normally go up with inflation, bonds tend to not. So at some point you're paying less than people are in theory. Talk about how this often doesn't happen. So you save some money, and then at the end of the day, you actually have an asset that's worth more at the end of the day. Okay, so there's a couple of problems with this. The first problem with this theory is that, have you ever looked at an old South African Monopoly board, right? And you look at so Monopoly has all the areas in the suburbs, and there's here's the very rich row, right? You look at the one from 10, 20 years ago, the most expensive street you could buy was Elof Street. You guys been to Elof Street in Joburg? It's not very fancy. So this is the first problem with buying a house, right? You're buying a consolidated asset. You're putting all of your financial eggs in one basket because houses are very expensive. You normally can't afford to buy many of them, right? Which means that if one thing goes wrong, that could be your entire portfolio wiped out, right? Just one thing has to go wrong. That one area has to go down instead of going up. Now, over the past 9 years in South Africa, property has not grown above inflation. So if you bought a house, it's worth less now than it was when you bought it against inflation in most of the country. But that's only half of the picture, okay? So this received wisdom that we've all received from our parents of buy property, that's how you get financial security. It's not necessarily true anymore. It was true for a time, it's not necessarily still. But the thing about property is also that location is everything. So there are places in South Africa where if you bought property a few years ago, now you would be very wealthy. I live in Cape Town, like you guys. We all know, I don't know who can afford to live in the city anymore, who can buy in the city. I don't know, it is becoming impossible. So growth in the CBD in Cape Town has been 50-something% for the last 5 years. It's been ridiculous. It's been on the top 10 list of fastest growing income prices. So the thing is that I can't see the future, and neither can you, neither can anyone. I don't know whether property prices are going to keep growing like this or whether they're going to go flat. But the thing is that when you buy a property, you just are putting everything on one big bet. Why I prefer to keep most of my money in the stock market is instead of owning one big thing, I own a small piece of thousands of different things. They're not all going to go wrong at the same time. So there are some alternatives if you don't feel like you're ready yet to make this decision. The nice thing is that to get ready to buy a property, it's the same steps as getting ready to be wealthy another way. So if you can't afford to buy a house right now, don't worry about the decision because you still just need to do the same things. You need to get out of debt, start saving, start investing, keep your build up a healthy nest egg, right? One of the ways that you can own property, by the way, without owning a house is you can buy it into a property fund, right? Now, these are also things you can buy into with just a few $100 a month. You can also find them on places like Easy Equities. I think CoreShares maybe has one. And these are basically companies that buy and sell usually commercial property, and you're buying shares in that company. So by buying into that for just a couple of $100 a month, You are buying pieces of actual buildings, right? So if you want that security of property, there are other ways that you can do it. You can like own some property without having to suddenly magic up 200,000 Rand for a deposit on a 2 million Rand home. The other thing about buying property is that it is much more expensive than you think it is. It's not just the price of the house. So firstly, the price that you're going to pay on that house is probably going to be double the amount that you see on the thing because of the interest payments. You're going to be paying it off over 20 years. Remember, interest is compounding, exactly like anything else. So over 20 years, that's like half of the value of the thing. It's just going to the bank and paying it on interest. That's before you have to think about insurance. You have to think about transfer fees when you buy the house. So even if you can get a very big bond, like there are some companies in South Africa that have started offering almost 100% bonds to young people. Also, if you buy it off plan, which means you're buying a building that hasn't been built yet, you can get a 100% bond normally, which means you don't actually have to have a home deposit, although it might financially make more sense for you to do that from the numbers. So even if you do that, it's very expensive and it's risky. Buying property is risky, right? Which means that you don't want it to be your entire financial plan. You don't want to be relying on it to be the thing that makes you rich. It might be a good thing for you emotionally. Again, it might just matter to you. And then let no one tell you not to do it. If you want to do it, just do it, absolutely. But like, don't feel like it's this very important, urgent thing you have to do because otherwise you're going to be poor. It's not clear that buying property makes you rich or not. It's very dependent on the circumstances. So like, rather focus on things that are in your control right now. Things that are in your control right now is like, just save. And then in a couple of years, if you run the numbers on your particular situation, where you want to live, you think it's going to be a good idea to buy there, then you already have the deposit and it's easy. But like, yeah, I haven't decided yet for myself what that looks like. It makes my brain melt, honestly, trying to run those numbers. Yeah.
Nice.
Things I'm going to say around that, but I don't have an answer.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And you can say that. We say
You're
all the
doing
time.
so well.
Okay.
Don't even question us.
Okay, cool.